nobody showed up, and I was so lonely. I got left all alone on Valentine's Day.
We are so sorry, and for me, the reason is that my internet connection the last time is down, so that I cannot participate in the lesson. But I hope that other classmates they were busy dating with their boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah, I think probably.
I'm so sorry.
But if you guys, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's no problem. But if you're not going to be at class, please go ahead and send either me an email or send Rockit an email. Try to do it, 2 or 3 days in advance so that we can plan for that. I should have expected it. I'm sorry. I should have known that Valentine's Day you guys probably would want to do something, but okay. Yeah, next time we'll do it better. So just a few words. So let's go ahead and get started. Who wants to try to who wants to take a guess and see if they can describe what David Foster Wallace was talking about in the reading? Any ideas that you might have? Do I have any brave people? You can bring up 1 point he talks about. I wrote down some questions.
Well, I think the first point is the advice of how to think when you're in a bad situation. You have to control your thoughts more than just to be negative about everything. Have negative points in the way you live. Everything happen around you. So you have to control the feeling because it's very difficult. It's like a default system in our brain, and we need to change it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Very good. Do you agree with that, Jian?
Yes, actually, it's exactly what I did in my real life. Because in his situation, when he had to wait a long queue in a supermarket, or have to wait in have stuck in traffic jam, so I always do the same. I usually don't think about that situation that I'm really so I think about other things, or I pick up everything, imagine some funny things happen with other people. For example, when I'm just waiting for a long time to wait my friend came, I just imagine everyone around me, around you, and imagine them have a funny story like a detective, or make something simple to have fun, and so I feel more comfortable about the time I have to wait it.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Very good. So here's a question. What does the author say is the real value of a college education? And Jiang talked about this a little bit. See, I can find the paragraph where he says it. Does anyone have any ideas? Does he say that college is all about teaching you how to think?
Yes, teaching you ways or control the thought.
Yeah. So he actually talks about how the value of a college education is teaching you uh, how to control what you think instead of teaching you the process of thinking. Right? So he goes through that long story where, you know, he comes home from work and he doesn't have any food at his house. So he has to drive to the store and he's very tired and the grocery store is very, very crowded and he's waiting in line and he's impatient and the woman in line in front of him has a little kid and the little kid is going crazy and maybe kicking his leg. And then he gets his food and he's going home and he's stuck in traffic and he's very, very frustrated. And he says, actually, the value of a college education is he can control what to think, right? So instead of thinking that, oh, these people are in my way, he chooses to think, actually, I'm in the other people's way. Like maybe the car behind me, the person is very, very sick and they need to get to the hospital and I'm in their way. So it's kind of, he can take the world and not put himself at the very center, right? Because when we live in daily life, we always say, my computer, right? The table is behind me. Everything is related to you. He talks about how if you can think about the world from another person's perspective, then it will help you live a much better life, right? You'll be a nicer person. Yes, exactly. We are not the center of the universe. What are do you guys? You think this is important? Kate, what do you think? Is this important?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important to if you have an ability to see things through other people and show your kindness and caring. I think the quality education will give you nothing.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah. Typing. Oh. Okay, Huang, do you have any examples of this in your life? Have you ever done this before? Have you ever been frustrated or
No.
have you ever thought about another person? Or?
Well, sometimes I think I feel interested about something, some people, because your mistake and your treatment with me, and I think sometimes when I meet when I have a trouble with another person, I feel very angry. But in this case, I think the most important thing is that I can control myself and and I can have the good way to treat with a person who hurts me. For example, when I leave, when I study at the university, I have to live with two people in one room, and sometimes we have a lot of difference in like like the way of cooking, and also I dislike to eat some food they cook. I still make some compliment about your cook, Uh,
Mhm.
However, I still give some advice for them to cook better.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so some more questions. What does so how does the fish story make sense? Can you answer this one for me? What's the story at the beginning? We'll let Pearl answer.
Sorry, which three fish?
Can you repeat the question? What is the first word bring the meaning to us? Or
Yeah, what is the fish story, and why is it relevant?
I guess
Why
because
does it make sense?
because I read through the article for one time, and I think the fish story that the that the author brought us in the first part of the speech, and I think maybe he referred to um, the way that or the way the perspective of we how we can view the problem in our life. Maybe in the story there are three character, the two young fish and the old one, and when the old one when the old fish asked the two young fish, what is the house water? The two young fish seem don't know what is the water, but after the author give the explanation behind, we can see that the water is from my point of view, the water is an environment that form our way of thinking, and I just think that he referred to the environment that form our belief and our way of thought, our way of thinking to every problem in our life. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly right. The water is a metaphor for just the environment, right? So you have to think like a fish might live in water, but it never thinks about the water because it's just natural, right? It's like breathing. You never have to think about breathing. But if sometimes you actually sit down and you think about the water, or you think about your environment and how other people might look at you, or how other people might feel after their long day at work, then those things will make you more aware and kind of take you away from yourself and the things that you want and you need on a daily basis. So for me, whenever I feel frustrated or angry or something like that, then I don't know. Sometimes I try to think about how another person might feel in the same room, right? Like maybe other people are even more stressed than me, and that kind of it puts things in perspective, right? This is all about putting things in perspective, and I think that that might have some significance in your daily life. And I wanted you guys to read this because I love it so much, and I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about. So, any other questions or last little thoughts or comments before we start with the lesson? Did you guys like it?
Yes.
I think it's rather hard tough to understand, but I got some phrases that I could quite not understand. You see, I will type here.
Okay.
Then
banal. It's like very, yeah, very boring. A platitude.
Yes.
Okay.
Latitude.
So banal is boring or plain. It's very basic, right? That's banal. Platitude is something that is it's not very interesting because it's expected, right? A platitude is, yeah, it's a statement which is meaningless because you expect it, right? So, like maybe someone tells a joke, but you don't really think it's funny, but you just say that's hilarious, anyways, right? That person would expect you to say it, and it's not really that interesting than if you made another joke that kind of built on it, right? So it's just a not creative response. It's kind of boring. Yeah. Does that make sense, bro?
Um, do
Kind of.
do we use that? Phrase in our daily life or just on our paper?
Yeah, you can use it in your daily life. You can say something like, "Don't bore me with your platitude," or something. But I mean, that's like with friends, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't say that to your boss. That might be a bad idea.
Yes. So
But yeah, you can.
when I look,
Yeah.
yes, when I look the two words in the dictionary, I found out that the two words have equal meaning. The banner is adjective and the platitude is a noun, and it is equal, and it come together is a very boring thing that the person has make out.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use them together. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, very good. All right, now I want to get into our pronunciation lesson. So last time we did chapter 4 and we finished up on consonants, right? So today we are going to talk about chapter 5. We're going to talk about syllable stress, which is essentially like the tones in English. So actually, the meaning of a word can change depending on the stress that you put on a syllable. Everyone knows what syllable is, right? If you don't know what a syllable is, it's okay. The syllable is just one section of a word, right? So banana has 3 syllables, right? So we can look at here, for example, when we speak in English, we put the stress on the middle syllable. We say banana. We don't say banana, right? It's not flat like that, just because that's the way that the pronunciation has evolved over time. But we'll see some examples as we go along through the lesson, where it's really quite important, especially between nouns and verbs. And actually, syllable stresses are very interesting because a lot of times in music or in poetry, the authors will play with the syllable stresses to kind of create a more beautiful sounding passage. So we have stressed versus unstressed syllables, right? Stressed syllables are longer, louder, and they're higher in pitch. This is when you put the emphasis on that syllable. The unstressed syllable is reduced and it becomes neutral and short. It's called the schwa. Actually, this is something new that I learned when I was reading this book. I actually had no idea it was called the schwa. But it's pronounced as a eh, and it can be spelled with any vowel, but it almost always changes into this sound. So actually, when you're speaking English, it's more important to understand how the syllable is stressed than how it's spelled, right? So if you can understand which syllable has the stress on it, that's going to help you better than if you actually know the exact spelling. Okay. So here's some examples of reduced second syllables, right? So one syllable, man. Obviously, the emphasis is on here, right? Purpose. Sorry, that's wrong. Ignore that one. So the unstressed second syllable pair for man would be salesman, right? So actually, I'm putting the emphasis here on sales. So I would say salesman, salesman. You kind of hear how I put the emphasis on the sales, salesman. So for number 3, it would be race and terrace, terrace. I don't say terrace. I don't say terrace. I say terrace. You can hear how it's the second syllable becomes reduced. So running through these others, you have number 4, late, and chocolate. Chocolate. I don't say chocolate. I say chocolate. It's got that E sound. Chord and record. Record is like the very big CD. You know the records? Yeah, LP. Rage, courage. Again, that E sound. Breakfast, land, and England. Right? These are all pretty easy. Okay, reduced syllables. So now we're going to put the unstressed part. We're going to reduce the first syllable of the word. So con and control. Control. Now I put the emphasis here. I'm sorry, the underline is a little bit confusing, but this turns into like a control. It's not control. Control. Add, advice, lag, lagoon, pod, podiatrist. That one's really good, right? That's pod with the aw sound and podiatrist. Almost like a PE, podiatrist. Then you have ball and balloon. Balloon. You have red and reduce. Off and offend and material. Again, material. Right? So even if you see the proper spelling, that doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how it's pronounced. You have to understand the stresses of the word in order to get the proper pronunciation that a native speaker would have. Okay. So there are some dangers of mispronouncing words. Some words are very similar, except for the word stress, right? So this is noble and Nobel. You guys, you know the Nobel is very famous. And then you have invalid and invalid, right? Here I have the emphasis on invalid, and here I have the emphasis on invalid. Oh, no, sorry, that's wrong. It's actually on in, right? Ignore that. Erase it if I could. Okay, there we go. Invalid, right? So invalid means not viable, not true. Invalid means sick. So that actually changes the meaning of the word depending on how you pronounce it. And then running through the rest of these, personal and personnel. Here the emphasis is on the first syllable, and here it's on the last. No. Eligible, ineligible. That one's a little bit different because it has a different spelling. Pronouns and pronounce. So here, spelled differently, except for the syllable stress, right? Pronouns versus pronounce. We have comedy and committee, decade and decade. Right? So here we have the emphasis on the second syllable, and here on the first. And so this here, this is actually a noun, right? Decade, it means 10 years. While decade, I'll type it here because it's easier. Decade is equal to a verb, right? In just a minute, how the stress on the syllable can change the type of word. So general rules for stress placement. There are many exceptions to the rules. You just have to learn them. I'm sorry that English is so difficult. Blame the British, not the Americans. We just copied it. Some general rules that work sometimes. Nouns, stress the first syllable, right? Action, paper. For nouns, you want to stress the first syllable. Nouns, stress the first syllable. And for verbs, stress the second syllable. Produce, achieve, right? So produce can actually be a noun or a verb. If I say produce, then it's a noun. If I say produce, then it's a verb. So here we have some noun and verb pairs. Addict versus addict. Conduct versus conduct. Conflict versus conflict. Contest versus contest. And you guys can hear for the reduced part of the reduced syllable, remember that changes into the E sound, right? It becomes just a very lazy sound. You just put a vowel in there, whatever. I mean, just the easiest vowel to say. So convert versus convert, convict versus convict, defect versus defect, desert versus desert, increase versus increase, insult versus insult, object versus object, present versus present, produce versus produce, progress versus progress, rebel versus rebel, record versus record, research versus research, etc., etc. And I will record myself reading through these and post it on Dropbox so that you guys can have the audio of me pronouncing them, and you can go ahead and practice on your own time. So words ending in tion and ate have stress on the first syllable. So these are pretty easy to spot, right? Nouns ending with tion have a stress on the syllable before the suffix. So if it's a verb, then you're going to put it on the first syllable. Activate, celebrate, congratulate, demonstrate. But if it's a noun, activation, celebration, congratulation, demonstration, and you put it on the one right before the tion. This is pretty easy. This is a rule that you'll have to remember. ATE endings of verbs versus nouns. Careful with verbs versus nouns ending in ATE. ATE at the end of the verb is pronounced it, like E. ATE at the end of a noun is pronounced IT, right? So here we have verbs on the left. This is separate, verbs on left, and nouns on right. So this is separate, and separate. You guys, can you hear the difference? You can just nod if you can hear the difference. Alternate and alternate, graduate and graduate, and sorry that's cut off, but that's estimate and so other suffixes that are stressed, and you'll probably run into these pretty commonly. You have to be careful of these. These are words that end in EE, ETTE, IUE, ESE, EER, and AIN. The suffix is always in these words. So if you see a big fancy ending to a word, by the way, suffix just means ending of the word, right? So if you see a big fancy suffix, then no, so you want to pronounce it. Employee, cassette, unique, Japanese, engineer, explain, cigarette, volunteer, right? So the first portion of the word is reduced and the ending is stressed. Okay, rules for prefixes. However, if the prefix and the root function as a noun, the first syllable is stressed. So here we would have oversight. Right? Here you can hear the O is stressed. Undertaker, overdose, underwear, refill, repeat, outsourcing, outcome. So the prefix and the root are all nouns in this case. These are all nouns. So we want to pronounce the first part with the emphasis. Some more rules for prefixes. Occasionally the prefix is stressed, other times it is not. Prefixes that are verbs usually have a stressed second syllable. Oversleep, understand, overdo, undertake, outlive, outperform. Okay? These are all verbs. Now we want to put it on the second syllable, outperform. Yeah, it's pretty easy, just a rule. Some common prefixes that you might encounter: pre, per, pro, mis, con, com, ob, sub, ex, d, dis, a. Yeah, these are pretty easy. Be careful as to whether or not the root word that is paired with is a verb versus a noun. This can help you predict the correct pronunciation. So if it's a verb, then you stress the root word, and if it's a noun, you stress the prefix, just like we said. Yeah? So it's important to know whether it's a verb or a noun. And as you speak more and more English, these words will get more and more natural for you to pronounce. Just even listening to me talk right now, you're becoming more familiar with them. That's why I like to have the group discussions at the beginning of class, because they help us all talk and listen, and that's actually the best way to practice your pronunciation. Okay. So syllable stress change: noun, verb, adjective, or adverb. So politics, political, politician. Let's see if Jiang, can you tell me where the stress is tell me where is the stress on each of the words, and I'll read them for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The first row: politics, political, politician.
First one is the first one. First is on the syllable. And one is three.
Third one on the T. What about the second one? What did you say?
Lee, the second syllable.
Second syllable. Yeah, that's exactly right. Very good. So yeah, you can see the it's all the same root word, right? But the stress falls in different places. Politics, political, politician. So this here is actually a noun. Political is an adjective, and politics is a noun as well. All right. Huang, you want to try this one for me? Number 2. Can you tell me where the stress is?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read them. Photograph.
The first word is the first form. So 3 seconds. So
almost. Photographic.
The photo. The second.
Photographic. Yeah. Hey, this one. Photographic. Yeah.
Graphic.
And what about the last one?
Photography.
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 Second. 2.
Yeah, there you go. That's what you wanted. Photography. Very good. So, photograph, noun, photographic, adjective, photography, noun. Yeah, these are pretty easy. Kate, can you do number 3 for me? Are you ready? I muted you. I'm sorry. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, compete, competitive, competition.
The first one has the compete. The second is competitive. Competitive. The first one.